JJ lines it up, gets the triple. What a pass. Nico finds Drew.
Good morning and welcome into this edition of Pelicans Preview presented by Smoothie King. I'm Caroline Gonzalez. We are just about an hour away from tip-off as your Pelicans get set for their fourth seeding game inside the NBA bubble against the Sacramento Kings. Like I said, we're just about an hour away from tip-off. You can watch today's game on Fox Sports New Orleans coming up at 12:30 p.m. All right, time now to welcome in Fox Sports New Orleans color analyst Antonio Daniels. Antonio, you had a lot of conversations leading up to the NBA bubble about how it was going to work, the mood of the players, how the NBA was going to pull things off, and now you've said that execution process was seamless. But now I want the inside scoop as a player, what your mentality would be inside the bubble now that you've had a few games under your belt and you've seen just what the NBA has been able to do.
Well, I think from a player perspective, you're a creature of habit. So at least when you're in the bubble, you can now realize and understand what your routine is going to look like. You know, prior to, you have no idea what it's going to look like. When you're going to have time to go out there and practice, what you're going to have access to, what it's going to look like, what's your routine going to look like. But when you're in there for a couple of weeks and you have a few games and 3 scrimmages of you, now you have a better understanding of, okay, this is what my routine is going to be the moment I'm in the bubble. Because as a professional athlete, you are a creature of habit. You are a creature of routine. And guys have to find that routine that works for them. But you have to know what you have access to, the time, the court time, the weights, all the different things that they have going on inside the bubble. Once you realize what that is, then you can fall back into a routine that works for you individually and collectively as a team in that bubble.
Now that we're 3 games in, do you think that that's long enough to figure out what that routine, what that process is? Or do you think it's going to take maybe 1 or 2 more games? I mean, after all, some teams might only have 8 games to figure it out.
Well, the thing is, you can't wait too long. Like, regardless as if that's enough time or not, you need to make it enough time. Because this isn't a situation where you have time to make hay. All right, if we get off to a bad start and lose 3 in a row, like you think about this team throughout the course of the regular season, they won their first 5 exhibition games, preseason games, and they started out 6-23. But then you understand, once you start out 6-23, you still have 50 plus games to make it up. This isn't that same situation. You can't afford to get off to a rough start because, like you just said, Caroline, you only got 8 games. When you only have 8 games, you have to hit the ground running. So regardless as if that's enough time or not, you have to make it enough time. It has to be a priority to find out what works best for you individually as far as your routine is concerned to be the best version of yourself for those 3 scrimmage games and these next 8 playing games.
All right, before we get into today's game, let's get you caught up on Monday night's game against the Memphis Grizzlies. It was rookie sensation versus rookie sensation. We did see Zion Williamson's burst minutes go up. He scored 23 points and played 25 minutes in that game. And, of course, we can't forget about all-star for the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram. He had 24 points in Monday night's matchup, an outstanding performance from him. He hit some clutch shots there in the end. All right, as I mentioned, the Pelicans won over the Grizzlies 119-109. Let's show you some highlights from that game.
New Orleans Pelicans need some wins, and they need them in a hurry, particularly against a team like the Memphis Grizzlies if they want to get into a play-in game. Zion Williamson trying to lead the charge, and Lonzo Ball setting him up from 3/4 court. He goes up and gets it. Up by 8 at that point. Later in the second, Lonzo set the table again, this time to Brandon Ingram, who drives in and gets the tough layup, plus Valley had 24.7 rebounds in the game. New Orleans by 7 at half, 3rd quarter. Jaren Jackson Jr., beautiful spin and layup. He had 22 points on the game. Then John Morant finds Dillon Brooks, and Dillon Brooks finds the bottom of the net. Nice little shot there. And it's a tight game. Memphis right back in this thing in the 4th. J.J. Redick to Zion Williamson, and Williamson explodes to the basket for the layup. Then Josh Hart. Reverse layup. That goes down. Later, Zion gets his shot blocked on this play by Jackson and sort of jogs back up the court. And remember, New Orleans keeping an eye on his endurance, so he gets subbed out of the game. New Orleans up by 4 at that time. John Morant trying to close the gap. This helps a bit because it gets it back to 4. He knocks down the 3 at 11 points on the game. But for New Orleans, yeah, that guy checks back in. They need him at this point. And Brandon Ingram sets him up, and he just bulldozes his way to the basket again and gets the layup. And then it's Drew Holiday to you-know-who, Zion, and again, just through traffic and gets the layup. It's 23 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. New Orleans gets a much win, 109-99.
All right, well, we just saw highlights from the Pelicans' first win in 4 months, which sounds a little weird to say, but let's bring back in AD to get his thoughts on that game. AD, the Pelicans obviously needed to win that game against the Memphis Grizzlies. You heard pretty much everyone say it was a must-win. What did you think out of the Pelicans' performance?
It was a must-win. It definitely was a must-win because of who you were playing. And I love the mentality of this team heading into that game, not just in what they spoke, but what they displayed on the floor. First, you talk about value in the basketball. Incredibly important. In the previous 2 games, against Utah, 1, and then their next game against the Clippers, they ball over 20-plus times. And when you're playing good teams, you cannot turn the ball over 20 times and expect to win that game. 15 turnovers in this game, and only 5 turnovers in the second half. But also, just the balance of when to attack and when to shoot that three-point shot, not becoming too comfortable and complacent with shooting that three-point shot. And that showed in the difference in free throw attempts. And obviously, having Zion on the floor makes a significant difference. 29 minutes in the previous 2 games combined and 25 minutes in this game. And this is the most comfortable he looked because this is the most time that he's been on the floor. His spurts came a little bit different. They were a little bit longer. But I think the most important thing, you saw in the last 3 minutes of that game, what it does and what it means to this team as far as execution and activity and confidence are concerned to have him on the floor to finish the game alongside Brandon Ingram.
AD, you and I have talked before the games recently about these bursts, and I feel like those bursts have been, the word burst has been like the word of the last few weeks. But now that we're seeing these bursts go up for Zion, how important is that for chemistry and rhythm for the Pelicans?
Well, I think it's important not just for him individually, and he has spoken at length about how tough that is. And as a player, I'll tell you, when you're out there for 4 minutes and right when you start to get loose, you come out the game. And then you sit for the remainder of that quarter. You come back in at the start of the second quarter. Right when you start to get loose, you come out the game. But it's also just a bit difficult collectively to find your rhythm. Because if I understand that Zion is only out there for 3 or 4 minutes, now I'm going to dial myself back a little bit to get him involved and almost force feed him. And that's what I love about the last game, is his mentality to attack and be aggressive from the jump. He had 7 field goal attempts in the first quarter last game. He had 7 field goal attempts in the entire game against the Clippers. So just the mentality and understanding that I'm going to be out here for a minute. I'm gonna find my rhythm, and the sooner I find my rhythm, you all can find your rhythm. And you saw this team looks completely different as far as rhythm goes, as far as continuity goes, when Zion is out there on the floor for a lengthy amount of time.
All right, let's switch gears into tonight's game, or I should say today's game with a 12:30 tip. It's time now for our squad goals presented by Zatarans. AD, what are your keys of today's game as the Pelicans approach their game against the Kings?
Well, I think there are 3 things that are important. First, you have to continue to value that basketball. That is incredibly important for this team. It's okay to play fast, but you have to play smart, value basketball. 15 turnovers last game, only 5 turnovers in the second half. That's the key to winning games against good basketball team and playoff basketball team. 1, you got to value the basketball. 2, transition defense. There may not be a faster player in this league from inline to inline with the basketball in his hand than De'Aaron Fox. He needs to see bodies in front of him. So you actually have to make the conscious effort to sprint back and make sure that he sees bodies. You have to build a wall against him, similar to Ja Morant. And 3, 3-point defense. So it starts with value in the basketball, which keeps them out of transition. And then when they get in transition, De'Aaron Fox is so good at collapsing defenses and penetrating that they basically surround him with all three-point shooters. So you really have to value the ball, one. You have to get back, stop De'Aaron Fox, two. And also you have to guard that three-point line. It's very few guys that get significant minutes for the Sacramento Kings that aren't a threat from the three-point line.
All right, we'll hear more from AD in just a bit, but let's go and hear from the team. It's time now for our Sound Up, presented by Beats by Dre.
I felt alive. It was just great to be out there doing whatever I can to help my team win. My competitive spirit was turned on, and I was just happy the training staff and my team trust me to be able to close the game out.
It's good to see him out there. I think he's, happy to be out there, and guys are happy to have him out there.
Honestly, I think when he's out there, he makes the game easier. Like I was saying earlier, he's a threat just by himself.
Obviously he brings a different dynamic to the team, definitely to my game. For me, it helps me a lot, but like I said before, we're happy to have him back.
I also think we just locked in. It is hard to beat somebody 4 times in a row, but I think after our last loss, we kind of just tapped in and got the win.
5 games left now. Before this we had 6, and we know we have to get it now. If we don't get it now, we're not going to be playing August 18th or whenever it is.
Our guys want to win, and I think that's the big key right there. Whatever it takes to win, that's what our guys are willing to do.
I want to win every game. So every game for me is like do or die. That's I see my competitive spirit.
We're grateful to still be in the race. Like you said, these next 5 games are very important for us, just to give us a chance.
Hopefully, I hope for good results for us, but I'm just focusing mostly on what we have to do. We just got to focus on continuing to get better, continuing to play our game, and we do that for the next 5 games. Got to run the table and, make it to the playoffs.
Great stuff there. Let's go ahead and bring back in AD for one of our favorite segments. It is our Twitter takeover fueled by Chevron. AD, we got some questions from our favorite Pelicans fans. You ready for this?
I am.
First one comes from Morgan Wells. What do you think is the toughest game left on the schedule?
I think the toughest remaining schedule right now, if you look ahead, would have to be the San Antonio Spurs. When you look at the San Antonio Spurs, the cast and characters are different, but the culture and the coach have remained the same. And you know what you're going to get with this team, regardless as to who's on the floor. It doesn't matter. And I remember playing for Greg Popovich. It doesn't matter if Tim Duncan played or David Robinson played or not. They expect, and he expects, to win every game. They are going to come out, they are going to execute offensively, and they are going to be disciplined defensively. This is a team that is going to play hard every time they step on the floor, regardless of what's at stake. So I think the toughest remaining game, you have Sacramento 2 more times, you have Washington, you have Orlando, you have the San Antonio Spurs. I think it would have to be the San Antonio Spurs.
That race for 8 plot only thickens. All right, this next one comes from Trent Bonner. What are your thoughts on Lonzo's play in the bubble so far?
I think Lonzo, and he'll tell you that he hasn't been at his best thus far, especially the Lonzo that we've become accustomed to seeing prior to the season being postponed. But having Zion on the floor for Lonzo Ball in particular makes a huge difference because their skill sets complement each other so well. Zion is a runner and a finisher, and Lonzo is a passer and a seer, or should I say a seer and a passer. So I think now where Zion's minutes starts to get ramped up a little bit more, I think we'll start to see a more confident and a better version of Lonzo than we did in these first 2.5, 3 games.
Before we get to this next one, I have to add to that because how good was that pass from Lonzo to Zion? The full court pass. I mean, it was perfectly placed.
You know what? I think the one that he had to Drew was more impressive. The one that he had to Zion, it's almost to be expected because you throw it up, and when you have the confidence, it's like a quarterback to a receiver. I'm going to throw it up and have the confidence that you're going to come down with it. The one that he threw to Drew Holiday was so amazing because he put it where only Drew could get it over 3 Memphis Grizzlies basketball players. And just to trust that he has, number one, in his skill set to make that pass, and 2, in Drew Holiday to catch and finish that. You know, and he's a guy that different players get motivated by different things. Lonzo Ball is a player that gets motivated by making good passes. So his confidence will increase the better that he's passing the basketball. The better that the team is running, the more that he facilitates and gets everybody involved, you can see his confidence growing in himself.
All right, well, you can have your opinion and I'll have mine. We'll just agree to disagree. All right, this last question comes from Crystal Holmes. What impact do you think the virtual fans have on the players?
I think it gives the players some sense of normalcy. Obviously, when you go into that arena, it's different. And obviously, I'm not there, but many players that are in today's NBA grew up in the AAU culture. So you played at 8 o'clock games and 9 o'clock games where there's no one in the stands but your parents. So, but when you're playing against the best in the world, the competition level is something that you'll never have to be concerned with. Guys are going to compete. And I think when you look up and you see the fans and you see Grizzly fans, or you see Pelican fans, or you see Laker fans, I think it gives the players some sense of normalcy so that it doesn't feel like we're in the middle of a global pandemic. It doesn't feel like you're playing basketball in the middle of a bubble, you know? So I know for myself, if I was there and even watching it, the entertainment product on TV, which I feel like the NBA did a fantastic job and got it right, it almost makes it feel like an NBA game where fans are actually present at the game.
All right, flawless execution there from AD. All right, let's go inside the bubble once again as our Pelicans favorites, well, they're all our favorite, JJ Redick and Josh Hart sit down for a teammate interview in this edition of the Bubble Beat. Bubble Beat.
So life is good down here. Josh, what has been off the court the biggest highlight of being in the bubble?
Probably the wine we're drinking. I think, and what I'm very lucky about is because I'm like the young guy, so we've been hanging out a lot. So it's kind of like one of like the unwritten things to do. Like when you're the older vet, like you always like pay for everything. So I've been running dinner free and haven't been able to bring any of my good bottles or buy any good bottles. So I'm doing it. I'm loving life off the court right now. I'm getting free food and great wine.
It's interesting that you would admit this in front of other people, but not to me personally. So basically, you have been using me for the last 15 days for free dinners and access to my wine. That first 36 hours we were here, when we first landed in Orlando, came to the hotel, did our initial test, and then we had to sit in our room for basically almost 48 hours. Obviously you gamed during that time, but what's going through your mind, and how was that mentally for you?
It was definitely kind of weird, kind of uncomfortable, because we couldn't leave the room. In the morning I was we have a little patio, things around the first floor. We got a little patio with a couple chairs. So 30, 45 minutes in the morning, I'll go and just sit out there and just look out into the abyss of all the people mingling and, wishing I was one of them.
I don't think that, because I watched a little bit of the highlights yesterday from some of the games, I don't think the viewing experience on television quite captures the feel of being on the court. And so I like to sort of compare it to, the movie set or being on stage at a Broadway show, because you literally, they put curtains up on a couple of the sides. There's walls and a stage for the cameras built on another side. There's a little bit of seating opposite our benches where executives and a couple media members were sitting. But it feels very enclosed, and then you have these really bright lights right on top of you, very similar to MSG or Staples Center.
Mm-hmm.
What Would you agree with me though? Like the two parts of it that were the eeriest were when we came out for warm-ups and there's like silence. And then on free throws. Free throws really messed me up. It was just dead quiet in there.
Yeah, it was yeah, you probably hear like a pin drop. So like that, and that was the weirdest thing. And it was like, if we say anything, like, because everything's so quiet, like you're going to like anyone that's watching is going to hear. It was just really, I don't want to say awkward, but it was kind of weird. Like it just wasn't like, anything that we ever experienced playing basketball. Like not even when we were a kid, because like they still have like the very involved mom or dad like yelling at the ref or something when you're a kid, or like telling you to make the free throws or something like that or whatever. So it was just totally silent, and it's just like, all right, this is probably this is very uncomfortable. This is really weird.
All right, well, thank you guys for watching and listening to Josh and I tell you about life in the NBA bubble. We appreciate your fandom. We appreciate you supporting the Pelicans. Josh and I, both in our first year in New Orleans, I think I speak for him. We both absolutely love New Orleans. We love you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll check in with you soon.
All right, nice job, fellas. We are counting down the minutes until tip-off. You can watch this game and all of the seeding games on Fox Sports New Orleans. Of course, today's game is on Fox Sports New Orleans at 12:30 p.m. as the Pelicans take on the Sacramento Kings. But let's switch gears over to tomorrow's game, as it is the Pelicans' first back-to-back inside the NBA bubble, as they will take on the Washington Wizards. Let's go ahead and get into our Who's Got Next, presented by Hancock Whitney Bank. AD, as the Pelicans approach their game against the Washington Wizards, what are you looking for out of that matchup?
Well, I think that the toughest challenge that the Pelicans will have facing the Washington Wizards is to understand that you are still playing professional athletes. And your tendency when they're without their top players is to kind of exhale and say, all right, you know what, we got this. Because they're without John Wall, they're without Bradley Beal, they're without Davis Bertans. So they're without three of their top players. And it's a cast of characters that a lot of these guys that you may not know, if you are not an avid or passionate NBA fan, some of these guys you may not know. Ish Smith right now, who is a career backup point guard and very capable, is arguably their best player, along with Rui Hachimura. So I think that you have to fight at human nature aspect of the game, which tells you that you can just show up and beat this team. Everybody in this league, they get paid, and they get paid well for a reason. So you have to fight complacency. You have to understand that this game means a lot more to you than it does to them, and approach the game and approach the floor with that mentality.
I like it, AD. All right, that'll do it for us, AD. We appreciate your time, and good luck on tonight's call.
Thank you.
All right, that'll do it for this edition of Pelicans Preview, presented by Smoothie King. Don't forget, we'll have these preview shows available for you on all of our seeding games inside the NBA bubble. Now, our next one is tomorrow. Don't forget, the Pelicans have their first back-to-back inside the NBA bubble, as they'll take on the Washington Wizards tomorrow. I'll be joined by Locked On Pelicans podcast host Jake Madison. Also, don't forget, all the games are available on Fox Sports New Orleans with your favorite broadcasting crew. Joel Myers, Antonio Daniels, Jen Hale, and David Wesley will join them for the Pelicans preview show and post-game show. All right, let's get you fired up for tip-off at 12:30 p.m. from our friends at SeatGeek. Let's go.